This is the extended outlook for Chucktown wind report, Monday, June the 22nd to Thursday, June the 25th. So what we have going on in the southeast region now is we do have a very healthy Bermuda high pressure built in over the Atlantic. We also have this feature here, which is a northeast Gulf of Mexico high. This develops typically this time of the year in the hotter weather along that area of Florida during heat fluxing. So what we have is a nice southerly synoptic flow off of this Bermuda high, and this one is actually providing a westerly flow. This all helps to build troughing, an area of troughing in the mid-state and Piedmont areas, especially when you have a very weak ridge built into the Appalachian Mountains that spills down some of this cooler moist air that is filtering down from the north. Now, this air, as it travels down into the state and spills downslope, when it meets this southerly and westerly convergence, you're left with this area of troughing. Now, this dashed line right here represents a shortwave trough, so the winds are actually bending from the north and around to the west. So, all in all, what this means is that we have a nice healthy area of convergence where you have troughing able to fire off thunderstorms and shower activity inland enough to meet the sea breeze convergence line, which is just inland of the coast, and that just sort of helps circulate winds with a return flow out over the ocean and back into land. So that is what gives us our healthier sea breeze convergence zone, and that's what we're looking for. So today, between this high pressure in the Atlantic and the northeast Gulf high pressure, and just a little bit of nudging down slope from these highs here to the west, we should see a pretty healthy sea breeze. I'd say 13 to 17 knots. So let's look at yesterday's weather balloon. These soundings from 7 a.m. reading I'm going to use because the 7 a.m. reading is not available right now. It won't be available until about 8 or 8:30. I expect something kind of similar to this today, just based on the criteria that I just explained. So we have a westerly flow at the low and the mid levels. Up high, we don't see a whole lot of movement of air except for maybe at this level, but our equilibrium level was set at about 44,000 feet. That means that's about where cloud tops would probably end. So any thunderstorming that develops in this vicinity would be allowed to grow up to about 44,000 feet. So that's pretty healthy, and that the return flow from that would actually be enough to get our sea breezes up into moderate levels. Okay, so let's take a quick peek at Charleston. Right now we have 8 knots at Isle of Palms. This is at 6:05 a.m. We have 14 knots at Folly Beach. This is working off the inversion, which this will probably fade away as the sun comes up and the land starts to heat. This is just a brief spike in the wind. We did have last night a nocturnal surge that kept it right about 12 to 16 knots. So I'm not really expecting too much more at Folly Beach today. This is a little bit indicative of what it may look like for the day at Folly Beach. Now at Isle of Palms, probably slightly higher north of the harbor, and we can see that those nocturnal values were around 13 to 17 knots, and you had a couple of gusts up near 20. I expect somewhere around this vicinity today, I would say 13 to 17 knots, sometime in the early morning hours, we could see those winds, in that category. So when we talk about where the sea breeze front is for the Charleston area, we typically see the sea breeze front penetrate somewhere around to this area here, and this area left behind is where the winds are really starting to sort of accelerate along the coast. So that's what we always look for, is how far inland the sea breeze is going to penetrate. And the circulations where the thunderstorming activity is usually in this area. It's sometimes a little bit further inland, but this is generally where your clouds, your inland clouding and your thunderstorm anvils and thunderheads are developing. And what that does is it's giving that return flow out to the ocean and then circulating back into land. So that return flow is sort of creating what I would call a wind wheel. And when you have winds coming from the south and this entire wheel is actually getting going from the thunderstorms, you get a tilt from Coriolis effect to get a southwesterly flow going. So it usually goes from like a southerly flow into a southwest flow. So that's sort of how our sea breezes work here. So I already talked about the weather balloons. Now let's go to the earth.nullschool.net, and you can actually see this vast area of high pressure that is built in the Atlantic Ocean. This is our classic Bermuda High. I'm expecting this Bermuda High to actually ease a little bit further to the west and sort of become more robust in nature, and then actually draw our sea breezes up a little higher tomorrow. I think tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday are probably going to be our heavier days for sea breezing. So if we look at today through wind alert, we see our 5 a.m. reading, and we can see 8 a.m. and we had to wait for that to load. So 8 a.m. and then we're going to work. This is working off of the GFS model, computer modeling. So by 11 a.m. you see the sea breeze start to come on shore. You see this short wave trough working down into the state. That's gonna help fire off some thunderstorms. And we see the sea breeze starting to work a little harder along the coast by 2 p.m. And then by 5 p.m. you see a little bit of convergence here in the mid-state. It's picking up on thunderstorm activity and heavier convergence where low pressures are developing. So this southerly flow should pick up as the day goes on. And like I said, I'd say 13 to 17 knots for today. And we're going to go into, I'd say 14 to 18 knots for Wednesday, I'm sorry, and then 15 to 19 knots by Thursday. So that will do it for the extended outlook for the Chucktown Wind Report, and have a good day.